I guess there's still a lot of colorful animals out there. Fish, birds.
Well, and I wonder when we talk about like, or just like, they decide on a color for a dinosaur, whether versus via like scientific models or literature or like film, which obviously is going to have a little bit more leeway. Or are they taking those color palettes from lizards? Because birds are super, super colorful.
That's a
Like
good point.
who's to say a T-Rex was not, um, just like these beautiful like white plumage? Who knows?
Well, and I need to be careful too because I think I'm referencing like toys. So of course they're going to make the toy dinosaur hot rod red.
Yeah, it would be cool.
But
Yeah.
I'm not looking at a dinosaur model in the Smithsonian. That might be a little bit more a little bit more accurate
more
than
muted.
Hasbro.
Yeah. Man, we have legit. My son just like got really, really, really into bigger than that. Your tiny dinosaur, but just like the 6-inch little dinos.
Mhm.
And it's just like he knows not every, but like a lot of the kinds of dinosaurs. He wants like in bed, he wants to lay down and we go back and forth on types of dinosaurs. He'll be like, Daddy, you go first. I'll be like, okay, T-Rex,
That's a classic.
Stegosaur.
Yeah.
Just like hits all the ones. And it's because he loves that. And so he's been doing the same thing with he's got like a little excavator and a little dozer that he is like having fun with. Like he just loves like that exact size toy. And he basically doesn't care what it is. It could be superhero, could be Ninja Turtle, doesn't matter.
That was going to be my question though, was does he have heavy equipment toys?
We only have 2 so far. Well, we've actually got a huge Caterpillar. It might even be through Tonka, but it's just like a big haul truck that he will sit in and watch television.
That's pretty cool. Wow.
It's big.
Must be, pretty big.
Yeah, I'd say like the bed is maybe this big. I mean,
Nice.
the truck itself is, maybe 3 feet. I don't know. It's pretty solid. It's just like a
Pretty cool.
plastic. Honestly, it's just like a big, soft version of that, basically, without as many details.
It's amazing how kids, just what they're into and how many kids love heavy equipment. Like the percentage of kids, of the percentage of the population that's stoked on heavy equipment under the age of 7 years old, pretty substantial, which is why I'm very optimistic about solving the workforce problem, because it's like, okay, well, we have them while they're kids and then it goes away.
Yeah.
But it's there. It's there.
Is the thought there, and I'm sure you have opinions on this too, is the thought there that, they're really into it as like young kids? There seems to be like a lot of content about equipment that's geared towards kids or some. And then like whatever kids start watching 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, there's just not like a way to reach them using that.
No, I think it's that's the age where they start to step into the education system.
True. And they just don't talk about it at school anymore.
Well, what's the education system for? It's designed to mint kids for college.
Yeah.
And what's college for? It's designed to mint people for corporate America, for jobs. That's essentially it.
That makes sense. That's a good point.
It's made into this this bigger than it really is, especially nowadays. And maybe college used to be, and it definitely was, for philosophers and doctors and people that would think about different things and challenge different things and this and that. Now it's really just high production. Let's just get more people minted for corporate America. And then the funny thing is, it doesn't even do a very good job minting them for corporate America anymore. I just read some research about how much money corporate America has to spend in training people out of college, and it's just astronomically high because people out of college aren't even worth that anymore. So I think that's it. I think they go into the education system, and then the education system is all about getting a quote unquote good job where you use your head, not your back, to make your money.
Well, and they say always lift with your back, not with your legs.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about like the corporate America who's having to like spend an additional whatever on training people out of college because even out of college, they're not really ready to like produce in these in roles. Is the idea that, or like the thought process behind that, like they feel like college isn't good enough, or
No,
is it just like the requirements are so much different than what college offers now?
yeah. Well, it's not good enough for the role.
Yeah.
Um,
And it turns out that more and more roles are not being like prepared for via college. Okay.
Yeah, and we're just more specialized as a society and corporate culture now than we once were. And
Yeah, it used to be like, well, just go to college for business and you'll have it. But it's like, well, what does that mean?
The reality too is college is sometimes some programs are a decade or two behind reality.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing talking to kids about what they're learning in marketing right now because we have a marketing business and I see what marketing looks like in the day-to-day world typically. I'm not super knowledgeable about it, but I know my way around a marketing business and what marketing is in the real world.
Yeah.
And what they learn in college isn't even close. it's, it's not even within the same ballpark. Like they don't even learn about social media. And social media is not a new thing. It's been around. And if they do learn about social media, it's getting taught by somebody who doesn't understand social media.
Yeah. It's like somebody who's 65 who's been teaching marketing in college for 30 years. And like, what experience do they have in like real world marketing? Very little, if any.
Yeah, well, that was one of my biggest qualms with engineering school. It's just outdated. You're learning about engineering in 2003 without what the internet is today, and you just sit there and think, you're like, well, I just have access to far more resources today to learn about a lot of these problems that I would need to figure out on my own back in the day. The world just moves a lot faster than I'm being taught right now and the methodology that was used 10, 20 years ago. But it's so difficult to update these curriculums and with accreditation and so on and so forth. It just doesn't adapt very quickly.
Well, I think a great example of that is, great example of like those issues are so few colleges and universities offer real software development training, which is ridiculous when you think about what is the world after you leave college. Like there are so many software development jobs. It's like, if you're good at this, you can get the job. And so all of these either modeled after trade schools, but just all these programs that are for teaching people how to code.
Yeah.
Those are popping up everywhere and they're churning out employable people. And so it's like there's like something there that's like working correctly, but the fact that like college, like mainstream college is not filling that gap seems to me like pretty glaring.
It's not I don't know. It's good. We've talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
It serves its purpose, but I also there's a clear gap there. Kids are stoked on heavy equipment and moving dirt. I've put a lot of adults in equipment for the first time ever. They're stoked on it. They're stoked on heavy equipment. They're stoked on moving dirt. So it's still there. What happens in between? And how can we interrupt that a little bit? Not interrupt that, but create a new off-ramp to, hey, you're stoked on this. You can actually go do this too. This isn't just for the sandbox when you're a child. You can actually build a whole lifestyle doing this, and it's for the right person. Super cool. So it makes me, I'm very optimistic because again, it's not like I'm trying to sell legal forms or I'm an insurance broker. I'm selling something, or we're having to sell something that kids are already fired up about. And like, okay, you're a kid, for example, you're stoked on heavy equipment. You're stoked on cars, race cars, stuff like that. You're stoked on dinosaurs. You're stoked on spaceships. What else?
Superheroes.
Okay, great. So we have those 5. So you might be able to be a race car driver, but there's not very many of those slots available in society on a percentage basis. Space travel, being in the space industry, yeah, sure. They're starting to employ more people, but You're
It's
you're
still
not going to be if you want to drive the spaceship, and I'm saying drive to be an idiot.
yeah,
If
it's
you want to drive the spaceship, that's a pretty small percentage.
pretty exclusive.
If you want to be a dinosaur, that's off the table.
Not a
these
lot
days.
of jobs.
not a ton of jobs in the dinosaur industry.
Yeah.
Superheroes, until they, maybe further research on COVID vaccines proves that
True, that
some
actually
went
could work out really,
completely
really
wrong
well.
and people turn into superheroes.
Yep.
That could be a positive adverse reaction. And then you have construction, which is, hey, this is actually a very viable career. So
That's pretty funny. I never thought about it that way. Like there is like a certain genre of like things that like kids really get into. Like I don't want to say it's I don't want to say it's really really defined or like really really like small amount of things, but there are. I feel like most kids are usually into like one of those 5 things, or there's maybe a couple more that we didn't say.
mm-hmm.
And you're right, like the like heavy equipment, like construction thing is the only thing that's like something you could be into as an adult and do something with.
Well, and it's not just heavy equipment too. Kids are so into building things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I was reading about the Metaverse this weekend and trying to figure out what the fuck a Metaverse was.
And you're like, do I need to buy property in the Metaverse?
Well, and I have a much better idea of what the Metaverse is. And it's like this catch-all term that I think is very misunderstood compared to the definition, at least I read about.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the big Metaverse players is Roblox. And that was actually the number one app in the world for time spent on app.
Wow.
And it IPO'd at like $40 billion. And it's this virtual world in which these kids can go create all sorts of different things. They can build based on, like Minecraft, too, is another example. Mm-hmm. They can build these worlds, or what's the Fortnite? You're battling, but you're also building while you're doing it. Lego, the biggest toy company in the world, it's predicated on building, creating. There's all of this massive interest in today's youth that's all around building things, creating, seeing what you're doing. And that's our industry. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we connect those two dots is the question. But they're there. That it's definitely there. It's definitely real and proven by Roblox or Minecraft or Lego. I mean, it's shit, dude. How do we do that? How do we tap into that, but for the adult population?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting to think about, that huge gap between like there's all this interest as a kid in construction and just like making things out of nothing. It's like my son now is 3.5, and like he has stumbled upon just videos of people playing Roblox. And he's like, this is cool. I'm like, I guess, man, like this is boring to me. But it's like, that's how like those kids get into those games.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there like is a clear like drop off where the education system, and I'm not demonizing anything here. I'm just more considering the interest of the conversation, that like not only does that interest wane really, really fast, pretty across a generation, but also the like understanding of that kind of work really disappears and becomes foreign too. So it's like, even if you're really into this stuff and really into making stuff with Legos, maybe some of those people might end up going to college to be an engineer or something like that, but that's probably not everybody. I'm sure it was just like, well, now I just do this instead. Well, but don't understand the like real world application of the things they were into for the first 10 years of their life.
No, and you think about school, what percentage of school is actually predicated on creating things and using your imagination?
It's small.
It's not very much.
Mm-mm.
It's really not very much.
And you really have to, I'm not saying this is my experience, you really have to like seek those opportunities out in the first place. It's not like, well, we're going to keep you making stuff. We're going to keep like feeding that creative part of your brain. It's like, well, if you just don't want to take art class anymore, you just say you don't want to. And guess what? You don't make anything ever again.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. Like you can avoid all of that if you just didn't really want to like put any time to figure out how can I still, be creative, in whether it's, music or art or computer science or whatever. It's like if you're just like, we're not going to make anything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just going to accidentally keep doing it. You have to put in the time.
And yet true creativity is one of the most valuable things, like one of the things that human beings are best at. And one of the things that AI computers can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Computers, like we talked about, like computers incorrectly, for 85% of the time identified a cat. Humans are really good at this creative part of the world, but then computers are really good at taking massive amounts of data and crunching it all together into different meanings that then humans can take and go put into the real world again.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be better at, I don't know, creating opportunities for people to create, and then just to have unstructured playtime.
Yeah.
Like if we go build this facility that we want to go build within the next year or two,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be part of it. Is I want it to be open every weekend for unstructured playtime for kids to be able to just get in a machine in a safe setting and try it out.
See what that's like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
because
awesome.
it's so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
It's so valuable.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all interesting. This is the kind of stuff I
Mm-hmm.
think about. I was thinking about the other day on my run. I was like, all the biggest companies when it comes to kids and play are all about building stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. There's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something there.
So, yeah, we could certainly connect it to just the broader mission to make the dirt world a better place, certainly.
Yeah.
We were driving this weekend and we were stopped at a light, and there was a residential site. They'd already knocked down the house. They were just kind of grading the lot. There was what was clearly a middle schooler sitting in a bobcat reading a book. And
That's
his dad
super
was in
cool.
another piece of equipment. And I'm like, I love this, where it's just like, you're going to work with dad. He's not sitting in the truck. He's sitting in the bobcat reading a book. And I guess it might have been a professional person, but like the person looked very, very, very young.
Well, and so I've heard this quite a few times, that a lot of the people in the industry today, they grew up around the industry.
Yep.
So their dad or uncle, grandpa, whoever it was, would bring them to work, bring them to job sites. And like the other day, I was on a residential job and this guy drove past in a Blade, and he had a kid standing in the cab with a Blade. And I'm like, you don't see that very much these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him about it, asked the superintendent. Oh yeah, his wife works nights and he works during the day, obviously. And there's an hour or two overlap. So his wife comes to the job site and picks
Drops
up the
him off.
kid.
Yeah.
So he takes him to work, and then the kid gets picked up an hour or two later, but gets to ride around with his dad in the Blade, which is awesome. But that doesn't happen very much nowadays because of lawyers and liability and insurance companies and safety. And it's a hazard to have kids on sites, even though it was all just fine before. Now it's a hazard. And unfortunately, that's created this, like, we had limited exposure for the youth to the industry before. Now we have almost no exposure to the industry as young people today, unless your dad has a shop at his house or something like that, and he's bringing the work home with him or whatever it is, or you're a small grading contractor and you can go take the kid and put him in a skid steer. But beyond that, there's no exposure.
Yeah. What do you think the difference generation wise between maybe even coming out of World War II, like into the New Deal? Obviously, there were so many development projects at that point, but there's seems to be like a certain generation that was, every kid's coming to work with dad, or is like really seeing like these like projects being built. And it was just like the fewer and fewer people going into not even the dirt world, but just into occupations that are like building and developing, our society in that way, that just less people are doing that now. And so there's less excitement about it.
During the New Deal infrastructure system or interstate system, all that, like we were still very much a developing nation.
Yeah.
And the United States is now a developed nation. and you just the entire economy transitions from a developing nation that makes things to this develop or to a developed nation that's really paid for thinking and shit like that, which isn't all that productive, but
Mhm.
it's technology, it's finance, it's real estate, it's a lot of things that we don't make a lot of stuff in the United States anymore. And so I think that's one of the big changes. Is
Mhm.
everybody's really quick to point to college, but college just essentially follows corporate America and follows the macroeconomics of our country to serve, whoever gives them the money. And that's what's happened. I think we've gone from making things and doing to then this developed, more refined nation of we outsource the doing.
Mhm.
We outsource all of that to other countries now, like which is what we did with manufacturing, for example. What we're trying to do with mining, like I talked to Dave Turn about,
Yeah.
we're just trying to go, oh no, we don't do mining in the United States because it's bad, but we still consume more resources than ever before.
We gotta get it somewhere.
It drives me nuts. Infrastructure, construction, same thing.
Well, but it does feel like there is like a significant. I mean, this is all stuff we talk about, but it does feel like there is like a significant. I don't want to say misinformation, but there's significant gaps between, like with mining, for example. I think this is probably the easiest one to talk about. The like negative, poorly executed mining gets all of the like airtime and all of the like reputation power,
Mm-hmm.
to where now there are a lot of parts and people in America who are like, oh, mining is a bad thing.
Well, and that's the problem. That's what these mining companies, they have. Let's just operate in the shadows and not tell our story.
Mhm.
That's easier. But we're over here. We're far away. Let's just not. We don't want to get in trouble. Um, what's happened is there's always a story being told about you, whether you're the one telling it
Yeah.
or some like there's and that's like a company with a culture. There's always a culture at the company.
Mhm.
And if you're not taking control of it, it's just going to run rampant in whatever direction it wants to run in. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. More often than it's a little bit of both, but it's typically more bad than good long term. If you don't take control of that narrative, if you don't tell your story, someone else is telling it for you. Someone else is out there. And that's exactly what's happened. Mining industry has allowed other people to tell its story for decades now, and that story has not been positive. And now they're sitting around scratching their heads. Why can't we get permits? Why can't we get people to work for us? Well, you haven't told your story. No one knows you exist. That's not a good thing.
Is there fear in the mining industry of like being transparent in that way?
Yes, yes. It's the legal liability. It's the spooks at MSHA, which they're very friendly people for the most part. I've no problem with MSHA whatsoever, and
Yeah.
yet they're made out to be this enormous boogeyman. Insurance companies, it's there's all different reasons, and honestly, they're good reasons. They're good reasons. Sure, okay, yeah, legal liability, yeah, getting cited by MSHA for a picture. I haven't seen a good example of that happening, but sure, that's a possibility.
Sure.
I'm sure you've been cited 100 times for other stuff that haven't been photographs, but yeah, that one potential opportunity for being cited on, I get it. I get it's scary, but what's even scarier is no workforce.
Yeah. Then you're just gonna have a mine that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, what's even scarier is what's happening to the coal industry. That's scarier. That's a real threat.
Yeah.
The whole industry getting shut down by regulation, by lack of workforce, by just competition from other countries that don't have some of the nonsense we have to abide by. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hell of a lot bigger of a risk than potentially MSHA potentially coming after me for a citation. And so that's how you have to frame it. I get the lawyers are scary and the insurance people are scary. The MSHA people are scary. I don't know. I don't know who else is. There's probably lots of scary people out there, but what's happened to coal? What's happened to mining? What's happened to these big permits? with amazing resource potential getting pulled, that's so much scarier.
Yeah.
Big picture.
Well said. I think what we work on, and I think when you're talking about like you tell your own story or someone else is going to tell it for you, that's like what we focus on every day. Whether it's, we're helping our partners just put themselves out there and share their stories, because we don't gussy up their story. We tell their story how it is. We show them how it is. But I think as we like work into the training stuff too, um, we have to like, I don't want to say we have to talk companies in and talk people in the industry in that like training is viable, but like we have to tell the story of like, here's what it does. Not just you're going to be able to train your people to do better work. It's like, yeah, that's part of it. But the larger aspect is like, we want to build a larger workforce in America who's doing this work. And it starts with helping develop the people who are already here, or the people who already have interest in it. It's like, that's just the beginning of that story. So I think what's fun for me to like see is, these really already successful companies who are like kind of future proofing that success in a lot of ways.
Oh, you have to. It's starting to become just a minimum standard in business.
Yeah.
It's just to illustrate. Like I feel like Joe Rogan's a good example of they tried to make him into XYZ. But anybody that's listened to Joe Rogan consistently can just sit there and say, that's insane. Yeah. You're really going to expect me to believe that? I've been listening to this guy for years. I've spent, at this point, hundreds of hours listening to this guy. I have a pretty good idea of who this guy is and how he thinks. And what you're saying just isn't true. But if I wasn't listening to him and I just, hey, Joe Rogan's XYZ, Joe Rogan's probably XYZ. Or, like Alex, you're not telling your story. Someone says Alex is an asshole. Well, what did you do? Well, he did this. Alex is an asshole.
And if my response is, I'm not talking about this.
Well, but if I've been following you on social media, or if I've known you for 2 years now, I can sit there and say, well, no, there's a story that's inconsistent with the story I've been told about Alex.
Yeah.
But if you're not telling your story, if I don't know you, you're not illustrating any of that online or whatever it is, sure, yeah, I believe Alex is an asshole. So then all these companies, who is controlling the narrative? Disgruntled former ex-employees that they've fired. Yeah, that's a big pool right there. Pissed off public if they're stuck in road construction, or there's a quarry by their house making a lot of noise and dust or whatever it is. People that are pissed off. That's who's controlling the narrative.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's pretty typical, right? And not even in the dirt road, but just in general, typically the people who are upset are going to be louder than the people who like co-sign what a company or a business is doing. That's just pretty typical, I think, across all industries.
Mm-hmm.
So super fun, man.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a couple Dirt Talk questions. You want the fun one or the more serious one first?
Dealer's choice.
Let's do it. All right. What are some kinds of projects/sites you've not yet seen but are really hoping to see this year?
I really want to go international because I have covered a lot of the United States, and I have a long list of stuff I would love to see in the United States, and I've only seen a very, very small percentage of what there is to see in the United States. And the fun thing is, especially in construction, it's always changing. So, and even the same project can be completely different a year later. So even if I've seen every project in the United States today, a week from now, that's different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just an indefinitely moving goalpost, which is fun.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of the United States. I would like to see more of outside the United States because I think that'll help my worldview and help my understanding of what's going on in the United States so that we can continue to solve some of the problems we're looking at.
Yeah, kind of adjust your lens of how you look at the United States.
Exactly. In the United States, we're 4 to 5% of the world's population. That's not very much.
Not a lot.
There's a lot more going on out there than just us. So in April, I'm going to Europe for the first time to go see some contractors in Switzerland, which are said to be some of the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see Liebherr in France and Germany.
You were talking about that last week. That sounds radical.
I'm very, very much looking forward to that, to learn about how, especially the Swiss approach equipment and projects and safety and people. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to go to Canada. Unfortunately, Canada is just...
There's time.
It's going to be a while before I can get to Canada. And I've really been wanting to go to Australia, but that's another one. Who the hell knows when I'll be able to get out there?
Yeah.
Because it's just, I don't want to go near it right now. Mm-hmm. It's unfortunate. But hopefully I can get up to Canada, Australia, and then I'm for sure going to Europe at least in April.
Mm-hmm. Is in regards to America, are there... Well, so I'm thinking about like when you went and saw that like huge jetty in the Pacific Northwest. Was that in Washington, Oregon?
Right on the border, Washington, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had you been to a site like that before? Or was that pretty new to you?
I had never seen jetty stone placement like that before. But funny enough, the jetty on the other side of the river was the one we were working on at Kiewit. But I didn't get to see the placement.
Kind of a different vibe, a different part of the process.
Yeah. So I've been around a lot of jetty stones, but I'd never actually seen them getting placed before.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to more really unique applications like that. I want to go see the jetties, the tunnels. I really want to go see the military.
Yeah, because that's a totally different brand.
Yeah, Navy Seabees, Army Corps. I want to see how they do it because I think that would be really, really special.
Yeah.
And I got lined up with them and then the whole COVID thing happened. So I haven't made that work yet, but that would be, I just want to see as many different ways of doing things as I can and see as many corners of the industry as possible. The problem now is how do I prioritize all of the opportunities I have right in front of me? Because I have people reaching out every day. Hey, you should come here. You should come there. You should check out this. You should check out that. And the reality is I just have 24 hours in every day, like everybody else does. And I can't just indefinitely travel.
Yeah.
Because I also have a side job of running a business.
It's just a side hustle. It's really not something you don't focus on it.
That's what I've been calling it. It's my moonlighting.
Yeah.
I moonlight at working for a company. So yeah, and I have a working list of specific operations I want to see.
I think what's probably the challenge is with all the folks who reach out and say, hey, you got to come see this site that's, either near me or I'm working on with my company or whatever. Your response has to be like, yeah, that would be sick. And then can't do anything. But just because, like you said, there's only so much time. Like you do spend obviously a lot of time on the road, seeing a lot of different projects, a lot of different sites, meeting a lot of different people. Mm-hmm. And you're still having to like say, I can't go see that project. I'm not going to be able to see it when I want to be able to see it.
Well, and I genuinely want to see all this stuff and at the least meet all of these people.
Yeah.
I want to meet as many people as I can. The question is, how do you make it scalable? We can make it scalable by bringing the people to us, which is largely why we want to go build this, what I'm calling the Dirt World headquarters.
Yep.
And this training facility. If we can go pull those things together, we can bring the Dirt World to us so we can interact with a lot more of the Dirt World than we are today, which would be super impactful for both parties. It's a win-win. So that's future state is hopefully I can create a situation in which the Dirt World can come to us more regularly. Like think about Con Expo, the benefit of going to Con Expo is to collaborate with the industry. Thinking about having a place where that's an opportunity every week of every year. That'll be the Dirt World headquarters.
Yep.
In Nashville, Tennessee. Coming
soon?
Early 2023.
Ish? Yeah. Yeah,
It'll
boy.
probably take a year to pull together.
We still got plenty of steps.
It's in the works though. This is not, I don't like talking about shit that's not already happening. This is very much already happening.
I've talked about it before, but like literally one of my least favorite kinds of people are the people who talk about, hey, yeah, I'm writing a book. As like that's like a thing to brag about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think you're right in saying, I'm not talking about this because it's like something I want to do. It's like we are in motion.
Yeah.
These things are in motion, which is exciting. Thanks for talking about that. Another question. This is sort of I can't figure out how to phrase, or I can't phrase it like a question, but you'll know what to say. Tips on how to transition from a field guy to an office guy. Love the field, but want to move into leadership.
Sure. That's a good question. I was just listening to a podcast about this morning,
Really?
about how everybody, the funny thing is, and this, not this situation, everybody thinks the only way to make more money, and it's largely true at a lot of companies, to make more money, to move up, is to, go from a doer to manager and go from the field to office. You have to go to the office to make the real money.
Yeah.
Which isn't always true at construction companies. I've met a lot of superintendents that make a shitload of money, and a lot of operators that make more money than a lot of management does. But yeah, there's this desire to go manage people, to go away from the doing. But then the funny thing is, they get to that position and they're miserable. Partially because they haven't been trained on how to actually do that. Because they're really good at doing, they're not good at. It's a totally different skill set. They're not doing anymore. They're managing people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not trained. And then two, they just like doing. And they don't want to be in meetings all day long and dealing with all these. And then they just kind of get miserable, which I've seen a lot as well, which is a huge bummer.
Where it's just like, I want to move up in my company. So I'm going to get out of this equipment or whatever. I'm going to go work in the office and be like, I hate this and this is not for me.
Yeah. So the first question is, or the first thing to think about is, make sure you want to do it, and make sure you have the right reasons for doing it. And that's not to say don't do it, but think twice, because I have seen a lot of people that do make that jump and then they're miserable, especially coming from the field, especially coming from the satisfaction of seeing what you're doing every single day. And then going to the office where that's not necessarily a thing anymore. That's a big leap, and that's a totally different ball game. But say, okay, no, I want to be in this role. Talk to the folks in the office about it. Whoever you report to, talk. Hey, I love the field, love this company, want to continue to be a part of it, but in my career, I have these aspirations to go here. And you're there, you're that next step forward, or, maybe the person you're reporting to isn't the one, could they connect you with that right individual, and start with having that conversation of just telling them, here's where I aspire to be. Because me as an employer of around 80 people now, hard to believe, we offer the opportunities, but then it's on the individual to take advantage of those opportunities and to go make something of it. And that's part of it, is you have to go tell people where you want to go. Don't expect it to just happen. So a good employer will take that information and be like, oh, hell yeah. Okay, great. You want to be in the office? Let me, if nothing else, they might have to think about it, but let's figure out a plan on how to make that happen. And it might not happen tomorrow. It might be a 6-month, 12-month plan. But in theory, okay, great. Now that you've identified that, hey, this is where you want to be, then they should start helping you get in that direction. And even if they badly need you out in the field, a good employer will put your needs before theirs and say, hey, this might set us back a little bit if we do this, but this person wants to go here, so we're going to make that happen. And then we're going to figure out how to backfill that from there. And if you want to go, and this is we've made this point a lot, so you want to go from here to there, your priority should be training someone up to make sure they can take your position, so that it makes that decision from the higher ups really damn easy. If you come to me and I say, I want to go here, and for the past 3 months, I've been training so-and-so on how to do this, they're just about ready, we can make this happen. I'll be like, shit, Okay, great.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's no downside, then dude, let's go. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just about asking yourself, what can you do as an individual? Extreme ownership. What can you do? What's in your realm of influence to make that happen? Because your career is your responsibility at the end of the day. It's no one else's.
Mm-hmm.
And no one likes those bitter assholes that complain about their employer, they missed an opportunity or this and that. Sure, there's a lot of shitty companies out there, but a lot of times it's on the individual before it's on the employer. Or at least it's a lot better to live life looking at it like it's your responsibility than just your employer making all the shots, calling all the shots on your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a good example of that is uh, you're far more likely to get a raise if you ask for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to me, I think that's where and I don't know if I just like have, yeah, I guess as I've matured and had different jobs, it's like I'm regardless of like my performance, which I'm like, I feel like my give a shit meter is pretty high. I really, really care about the things that I'm doing. But I've certainly like been frustrated at other points in my career, be like, man, why don't they recognize that I'm doing a really, really good job? You know, why aren't they saying you deserve a raise for the work you're doing? You're really valuable to us.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't they say that? They probably think Alex doesn't need that.
Well, and it's not even, and a lot of times it's not even that they don't care about you. It's just they've got shit going on.
That's what I'm saying. It's like if they've got other stuff to worry about, but it's like if you really, if that's like something you want to do, if that's what you aspire to, the best way to start that is to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's across all industries, all kinds of work is even if you're crushing it and everybody sees that you do, if you don't like bring up, hey, here's where I want to go with this, they're not going to be like, hey, let's put more on this person's plate or let's move them into another place. Like that might happen occasionally, but I'm sure for the most part, it's like, well, that person's crushing it right there and they seem happy. That's what most companies are going to think.
Yeah.
They got other stuff to worry about.
Yeah. Well, a good example of all this too, like Matt Briscoe, he wants to move into a different role after he's been here a long time and he's recognized, developed their ex people, recognize that, hey, I can do the video thing, but it's not exactly aligned with who I am and what I think my natural skill set is, which great. I'm really happy that he's learned that so far.
Especially as early as young as he is.
That's the goal. That's the goal. That's what your 20s are for, dude. Just try a bunch of shit and figure out what's for you and what's not for you. But I also told him, but you're also not going anywhere until you can fill that void.
Mm-hmm.
And so until you can fill that void, it's not in the cards. And so that's your number one responsibility is figure out how to fill that void. Once it's filled, you can go wherever the hell you want to go. But that's the number one priority is, hey, your role is still and that's where your employer is probably coming from, is everybody on the team plays a specific role for a reason. So if you leave that role, there's a gap there. How can you help fill that gap before it's a gap?
Yeah, play your part in filling in where you're trying to leave.
It's your responsibility. It's not your employer's. So if you look at it like that, that's a no-brainer for your employer. And if your employer's then just like, no, go fuck yourself. Okay, like I said, hey, you've taken extreme ownership. You've exhausted all the options. You've done the work. You've trained up people to take your position. You've talked about where you want to go. You've waited. You've worked hard. You've done all that. It's still not being recognized. Then go to another company. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. Everybody's hiring right now.
Yep.
Everybody's hiring right now.
And so I would want to say that I hope that the person who sent this question in, as well as anybody else who's in a similar situation where it's like, they're in a position that they're, maybe excelling in or just doing fine in, but like are able to provide the right value to the team, but like want to go somewhere else. Hopefully that they're encouraged by the thought that it's up to you to set those pieces in motion, not overwhelmed by the fact like, shoot, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that can be kind of intimidating too, especially maybe if you're younger or less experienced or whatever it is. But it's like, to me, that thought process is empowering, where it's like, if that's where I want to go, then I need to make sure people know that.
Correct.
Make sure people know that like, that's where I'm aiming towards. Yeah. So I think for me, I am both encouraged personally, but also I would hope that folks who are in the same situation feel the same way.
Mm-hmm. That's it, man.
Cool. Well, I think that is a Monday edition of Dirt Talk.
Super.
Well done.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. If you're not listening on the Build It app, check it out. Just download the Build It app. All the podcasts are there on our platform, which is very cool.
Yep.
But also all of the leaders' content is there. I just had a meeting with someone. He said, been on the app, been learning. It's awesome. I love to hear that. There's so much information on there that I have consumed that has dramatically, we just doubled the size of our business. I had a hand in that, and I had to basically double myself as a leader for that to happen. That's how I did it, was the content on Build It Leaders. This is not this bullshit stuff that we're just throwing out there and hopefully you learn something, or brought to you by whoever. It's real stuff that we've paid a lot of money for, that we've learned a lot from, that hopefully the industry can benefit from too. So if you're not listening on that Build It app, check it out, download it, let us know what you think. And with that, we will see you on the next episode. Until then, stay dirty, everybody.